What is the most powerful weapon for preventing war? Is it a bigger missile? A faster fighter jet? Or a force whose location the enemy can never truly know? If a submarine can remain hidden longer, travel farther, and operate for extended periods without resurfacing, it becomes more than just a naval vessel. It becomes a weapon that changes an adversary's calculations. And that is precisely why South Korea is pursuing nuclear-powered submarines today. The goal is to possess a level of capability that would make any attempt to start a war around the Korean peninsula unthinkable. And now, this is no longer just a discussion. It is moving into the stage of implementation. First, it is important to understand exactly what a nuclear-powered submarine is. The term is often misunderstood. In this case, nuclear refers to propulsion, not weaponry. It does not mean carrying nuclear weapons. It means using a nuclear reactor to power the submarine. Unlike conventional diesel-electric submarines, nuclear-powered submarines can remain submerged for much longer periods and operate with significantly greater mobility. Ultimately, the true value of the nuclear-powered submarines South Korea seeks lies in stealth and endurance. A submarine that can remain unseen for longer periods, and that is where deterrence comes from. In fact, discussions about South Korea acquiring nuclear-powered submarines are not new. What is different today is that the conversation has moved far beyond the idea stage. South Korea's nuclear submarine program has now entered a full-scale trajectory as a long-term national project spanning the shipbuilding, nuclear energy, and defense industries over the next 4 decades. On May 26th, at a meeting of the Future Defense Strategy Committee chaired by President Lee Jae-myung, the government officially received a basic development plan for nuclear-powered submarines. A government-wide task force, led by the Ministry of National Defense, outlined 5 core principles: the use of low-enriched uranium, domestic construction, indigenous development, comprehensive safety and security management, and the pursuit of attack submarines, or SSNs. Then, during the first follow-up USROK security consultations held in Seoul on June 2nd and 3rd, nuclear submarines and nuclear fuel procurement emerged as key agenda items, along with uranium enrichment and reprocessing rights and the possibility of establishing a separate bilateral framework to enable them. South Korea is reportedly giving serious consideration to a model in which the submarines would be built domestically while low-enriched uranium fuel would be supplied by the United States. The two countries have also agreed on a timeline for continued discussions. In other words, South Korea's nuclear-powered submarine program is no longer a slogan. It has become a major national project where shipbuilding, nuclear technology, defense, and diplomacy are all moving together. Another aspect worth noting is its industrial significance. Developing nuclear-powered submarines is not merely about strengthening naval capabilities. It is also about advancing South Korea's shipbuilding industry, nuclear sector, precision engineering, materials and components industries, maintenance infrastructure, and highly skilled workforce. Building a submarine is only the beginning. It requires an extensive industrial ecosystem that will support maintenance, upgrades, operations, and eventual decommissioning for decades to come. In this sense, the nuclear submarine program is both a military initiative and a national industrial modernization project.
To sum it up, South Korea has begun elevating nuclear-powered submarines to the level of a national strategic undertaking. Objectives have been established. Consultations have begun. This is not simply about adding another military capability. It is a declaration that South Korea intends to possess a sustainable undersea deterrent. Ultimately, the nuclear-powered submarine represents South Korea's answer to a fundamental question: how should peace be protected? not through louder weapons, but through quieter ones. Not through more visible displays of power, but through forces that can endure longer. A strength that cannot be seen, yet whose presence is unmistakable. South Korea is pursuing this capability not because it seeks war, but because it is serious about preventing one. The principle is simple. Stronger deterrence reduces the likelihood of conflict. This is not an aggressive slogan. It is the logic of deterrence. A missile defense system is valuable not because it enables retaliation after an attack, but because it makes success appear unlikely from the very beginning. Nuclear-powered submarines work in much the same way. Undersea deterrence is largely invisible, yet that invisibility itself is part of its power. Potential adversaries must devote more resources to surveillance and anti-submarine warfare, monitor wider areas of the ocean, and act with greater caution. Perhaps what nuclear-powered submarines are truly meant to protect is not the sea itself, but the ordinary lives of the people who live beside it. The routine commute to work, the warm glow of lights in the evening, the ability for children to face tomorrow without fear. Peace does not endure simply because people wish for it. It endures when others conclude that challenging it would come at too high a cost. That is why a nuclear-powered submarine is more than a vessel. It is a quiet expression of determination that supports peace on the Korean peninsula from beneath the waves. A symbol of peace and security on the Korean peninsula. In the quietest, yet most enduring way, South Korea has begun building the strength to protect peace on its own.